Absolutely. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining tonight. I like to start these classes with a few minutes of sort of quieting our minds. And, I guess if you thought of it like a car, getting it into neutral, wherever we're coming from or whatever we were doing before. And then I like to set our motivation during that time. And so, some of you I'm meeting for the first time, or, maybe this is even your first class, I don't know. But I, don't know what you're here for, kind of what the purpose is. But what I like to say is, and forgive me, I'm trying to figure out how to make my eyes not have that glare. I'll try to work on that.
You're fine.
But I think for some people, who are already self-identifying as Buddhist, they want to become enlightened, and that's the reason they're here. But there's other great reasons people could have. Just want to be a nicer, better person, have greater peace of mind. All of those are valid reasons. They're not necessarily Buddhist reasons, but they're good reasons. And I think these classes can help with all of that. But to the extent that you do feel like there's something greater that you can become, and to the extent that that's your motivation, I think it's really nice to try to tap into. So let's just take a minute. And focus on your breath. And then just try, if your mind wanders, to just bring it back. If you imagine your mind physically kind of being maybe at the tip of your nostril, and just keeping your focus there for a minute or two. And now, if you can bring to mind your reason for being in this class tonight, and set your intention. It can be something both large and small. So maybe there's someone that you know who's hurting, and you can sort of set your intention that you want to dedicate to them. Some aspect of your life that you want to improve. And then, as much as possible, to just connect with that deepest, highest wish that you have to help others. To be able to become a kind of being who could help countless other beings. And then with that intention set, you can all open your eyes and kind of come back into the space, the virtual space where we are. And welcome. So before I have an idea of a topic for tonight, but I do like to give folks an opportunity. Most of you are pretty shy though about setting an agenda, but if you have something specific that you'd like to talk about or anything came up in the last couple of sessions, if you've got questions, I'll take a minute to maybe see if anyone has anything before we move on. It's okay if you don't. All right. Don't hesitate though. At any point, raise your hand, interrupt, no problem. This is, these classes are great. They're really informal opportunities for us to have some discussion. So today is there something in the chat that is, nope, just a thanks. Okay. You're welcome. Thank you. So today I thought today is a little bit of a special day for a particular spiritual practice that I do. And, that kind of practice in particular, well, like anything, is coming from, from the kindness of our teachers. And so I thought, I don't know, especially if you're remote and doing Zoom and, don't necessarily are surrounded by, a big sangha of people who've been studying for a while. There's some topics that maybe don't come up. And I think, so I thought today maybe to talk about the teacher, the guru, guru-disciple relationship. Guru sounds so mystical and I think could even be, quite frankly, off-putting to like a Western ear. And I think there's you hear so many stories of, things going wrong like that, that it can be a really loaded topic. But I thought, this is the perfect place to have a discussion about that because I'm not a guru. I'm a regular person. And we can talk about it without feeling like, there's no like weird agenda. And, it's just a good opportunity among Dharma friends to kind of have that discussion. And, the word guru, what it means is like heavy, and so heavy with what? Heavy with qualities, heavy with all of the things that we want to become. So they are just should be laden with those things. And I think, someone wants to come in. Yes. I think when we meet the teachings, most people probably fall into one of two camps. You're either like open, you read it and makes sense to you. You're like, yes, I need a guru. And then you just go out and get one. Or, or the way that you came to the Dharma was you met a charismatic teacher and you heard the teachings and you fell in love with the teachings. And then you in your mind think, oh, now this person must be my guru. And so you mentally make that kind of connection. So there's people who are either really drawn to that, or there are people who are really cautious and maybe even, I would say, have no interest in finding a teacher, having that kind of relationship. And so, and I think in the West, like I said, I believe most people typically fall into one of those two kind of camps. So I thought it would be worthwhile to talk about, what makes someone a good teacher, guru, what that relationship is and looks like, and then, what kind of qualities we should be looking for, and how do we go about pursuing a relationship like that. And then from our side, what do we bring to the table? Because it's a relationship, right? It's always 50% of 50% of the relationship is me, and 50%, actually in some weird ways, you could almost say 100% of the relationship is the student, but we'll get into that. And that, that's debatable. And it depends on how you're defining things. But I thought to kind of share some like scriptural quotes here. So it's not, it's not just coming from me, on what some of the qualities of the guru are. So in the ornament of Mahayana Sutras, Maitreya Buddha talks about 10 qualities of the virtuous friend, the teacher. And there's 50 verses on the guru. Lama Zopa Rinpoche has this lovely book published by Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archives called Heart of the Path. And it really does a beautiful job of, talking about the guru in a very, extensive, comprehensive way, more than we'll do in this class. But, to talk about what the qualities of the guru are, so first out of the gate, looking for a person with morality. So, someone who obviously has a focus on ethics. And it can, in the world, it can be really difficult to know. We don't know, we can't read someone's mind. We're not necessarily around someone all the time. So some of these things, it takes a while to know about someone. And so initially, when you're studying, you can think about, even if you do guru yoga practice, you can think about Lord Buddha. You don't have to rush into, and in fact, you shouldn't rush into mentally kind of making that, forging that relationship in your mind with a teacher. It's okay to take teachings and have Dharma discussions, and someone doesn't have to be your guru. And in fact, if we, you can think of it a little bit like a romance. Sometimes you meet someone and you fall in love with them, and their personality is great and it seems like a good fit. And then later you're like, oh gosh, once you got to know them, they don't suit you. So in this regard, because the guru is such a heavy object, so back again to so they are heavy with qualities, they are laden with qualities, they should be laden with qualities. But the other thing is, there is a power that the guru has, and that relationship, and make no mistake, it's a power that we give to them. And it's a power that's formed because of how we're thinking of them. So it's not like they have some powers, externally from their own side. There's nothing, honestly, there's nothing mystical about it. It's to sort of maybe say the very most simple and basic explanation. It is looking out there in the world for the person who appears to you, right? So we're not hung up on how they really are for a couple reasons. One, you don't really know, you can't really know another being's mind. But the other reason is that if you think about the teachings on reality and the teachings on emptiness, these apply to the guru. So it's like we're in the world, we're looking, we have a habit, this is why we're in samsara, we're addicted to seeing things as existing from their own side. And so this is also true of the guru. So looking for the guru that really has all of these mystical qualities, that really is from their own side, having these things, it can be a mistake, because how we experience our world is coming from us, right? So our karma is forcing us to have a certain appearance. And so they say that's why, Lord Buddha, if he could, well, and he is here, but he comes through the guru, he comes through these other teachings. And the reason is, quite frankly, we don't have the virtue to see the Buddha directly yet, right? So because of that, we're seeing emanations. It's like if, I want to make the analogy of the sun shining always, but it's not quite like that. It really is that there's a qualitative difference. The Buddha can be right in, well, you probably have heard, if you haven't, I'll tell you. I think this is a great analogy. So Master Sangha was doing, and this is like an amazing teacher, was doing meditation for many, many years. And he was praying for Maitreya to appear to him. And he made all of these prayers. And then he came down and he saw, he was getting discouraged. He was feeling like, my mind is not, I haven't met Maitreya. My mind is not perfect. I've been in this cave doing all of this meditation, and I still haven't met the Buddha. And so he decides to give up his meditation, and he starts to leave his cave. And he gets to the bottom of the hill, and he sees a dog, an injured dog, and the dog has maggots in his wound. And then Asanga, sorry, because he had been meditating so effectively on compassion, like he saw this injured dog, and his heart just went out to the dog and to the maggots. And so he looked, and he so much wanted to help this injured creature, but he realized, his hands, he was too clumsy. He wouldn't be able to effectively take the maggots out of the wound without killing them. So it was like he wanted to help the dog and remove the maggots, and he wanted to not harm the maggots. And so he's totally like us, he's repulsed by the scene, but he's moved by great compassion. And so he closes his eyes, and he decides, the only way, I'm going to have to remove them gently with my tongue. And so he does. And when he opens his eyes, the dog is no longer the dog. The dog is Maitreya standing before him. So that sounds pretty doggone mystical, right? Yeah. But if we understand the teachings on emptiness, so what I would say is, this is a heavy topic, and some things maybe put it on the back burner if you're like, oh, that sounds, but just imagine, imagine, if you will, just that our ability to see holy beings is connected to our own amount of virtue. And so that would be the reason why we're not seeing directly a Buddha necessarily. And so we look for a teacher that benefits our mind and seems to have, I would say, what we do is you look out there at the best I'm looking out there in the world at what is the best that my karma can muster. Who is it that I know? And if I don't know someone, then you keep looking, right? Keep taking Dharma teachings, but keep looking for a teacher and make prayers to find someone that you can feel devoted to. Find someone that has these qualities. So in a second, I'll talk about the qualities, but first there's the qualities that we have to have, right? So I'm sure most of you have heard the analogy of the pot, right? So you've got a leaky pot, which is, someone who just doesn't retain the teachings at all. You've got the closed pot, which is someone who is not open-minded. So you need to be open-minded. So the closed pot is related to, we can't be closed-minded. The disciple has to be someone who is open-minded. The ability, the clean pot, having the proper motivation, the reason that we're taking the teachings is so that we can actually help living beings. It's for a pure reason. That's what our motivation is. And that's quality is associated with intelligence, actually. And then the not leaking, meaning, holding the teachings, someone who has some tenacity and some kind of perseverance to stick with the path. So those are the qualities that we need to have. And then, looking at the morality of a teacher, obviously they need to be mindful and aware. They need to have greater scripture. And, there's, quite frankly, there's lists of 10, there's lists of 20, but minimally they have to be moral. They have to have patience. They have to be kind and motivated out of compassion, not someone who's going to give up easily. Actually, I should give them an order, but so the first is self-control, and then being mindful and aware, having higher trainings in wisdom. So this is having studied reality, emptiness, fit for the job, meaning having more qualities than the student has. So obviously you're looking for someone that you can look up to and aspire to be like them. Working joyfully for others so they don't give up. They put a lot of effort into their practice and into their students. Rich in scriptural knowledge, deep realization of suchness. So that's emptiness. Either, we can't see their mind, but ideally someone who has realization, but if not that, at least a deep intellectual understanding. Someone who teaches according to the students and according to you. So it's a very personal relationship, and it's not one size fits all. So someone incredibly charismatic and actually someone very wonderful and holy might suit someone else, but their presentation doesn't speak to my heart. It's not inspiring. And they work out of love. So they're not motivated by any kind of ulterior motive. And they're not, 8 worldly dharmas, that's not what's running their show. And they have a great deal of perseverance and tenacity themselves. So those are kind of like the 10 qualities. Again, we can't see those things directly, but as much as we're, able to. So what do? You meet teachers and you can respect them and take Dharma teachings and don't make in your mind this idea that this is my guru, but you check them out. One thing, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So I also think, look at the students, right? So when you're looking at a guru, 2 things, and I love this, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you see him with his teachers. He has so much respect and humility. And I think that's also a sign of an amazing teacher, because he's an amazing disciple. So for me, looking at how my teacher interacts with his teachers, he's setting an example. But I think also, and this is where it gets dangerous actually, as a Dharma student, we are all in some ways like emissaries of our teacher, so like the good part of that is it helps regulate you a little bit. I feel I'm here with you guys in this capacity of, teaching this class, and I'm very aware that I'm representing my teacher. I'm representing Buddhist ideas, but I'm also representing my teacher in some way, right? So it's good because it's a monitoring, like, okay, I want to be on my best behavior. I understand that people will look at, and I think that's a responsibility we take on as students, and it's not I'm not talking about being fake in a Dharma environment, but I'm saying really trying to rise to being the best version you can be of yourself and being honest, about your shortcomings, but just understanding that our behavior, people who don't know, so I actually have a funny story about this. When the first time that I ever went to a Buddhist center, I went to this center called Vajrapani. It's in Northern California. And my experience the first day, everyone was so welcoming, like in the kitchen. I spent the night because I went for some late night teachings, and it went very late. So I stayed the night. I woke up in the morning and I felt like everyone was just amazing and kind and welcoming, and it felt great. So a short time later, I recommended to a friend to go check it out. And she came back and she reported that she was like, oh my gosh. And it wasn't that they weren't nice people, but it's a meditation center. So people were very inward and, just very quiet. And that was her take on, so she had a totally different experience. And I have told the person who I met in the kitchen, I'm like, thank goodness it was you. Thank goodness it was you in the kitchen. But I just had like a different karma to like meet someone who was friendly. But so I guess, being meditative and quiet is also a good quality too. And that's going to appeal to someone. But just understanding, look around. And, if you go to a Dharma group and you feel like it's, really gossipy or really kind of negative in some way, I think that's some kind of a sign. Like, what is that teacher teaching, right? Because, again, we're imperfect, but we are some kind of reflection. So looking at that and being aware of the role that we play with the outside world and in kind of representing the teachers. So I just did a whole bunch of blah, blah, blah. And I think this is a meaty topic. And it's an opportunity for us to talk about something that is just can be full of pitfalls and questions and all of that. So I'd like to kind of open it. If anyone wants to make a comment or have a question, something that they want to ask. Really?
The only word that keeps coming to my head right now is trust.
Yeah. And trust with your most important thing, which is your mind, right? I mean, it is incredibly heavy. And you hear so many stories of, things going wrong. And I think as a student, this is where we can take some responsibility. I will tell you that I feel blessed because I feel that having a good teacher and one who, good teachers, I have many teachers actually, and many gurus. And there's a debate about that. Should you just have one? You have one root guru, but you can have lots of gurus. Lord Atisha had like 152. So, but it's the student's ability to kind of hold the view. So also Lama Zopa Rinpoche, he's talked to people about when they make a Dharma connection and then they decide like, ooh, that teacher's not for me. Like, how do you handle that? Right. So if you've made that bond, maybe what he actually recommends is make an offering, and like apologize that you're not able to kind of follow their advice, but then don't take that extra step. It's how you think of them that is so important. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, that I made a connection with someone, a guru disciple connection. And then that person did things that appeared to me to be wrong. Then how I can make that guru work for me as a guru not by thinking they're wrong, they're bad, because that is actually very dangerous from a Buddhist perspective. Once you've made that connection, but to understand that they are teaching me. They are, in this case, teaching me exactly what not to do. They are showing me, and they are giving me an opportunity to practice. How can I maintain a view of them as the guru, while at the same time honoring how things are appearing to me? And I think that's the challenge that students have. And if we don't have those skills, it can become a really dangerous relationship. And they say it's the root of the path, and like all good qualities come from the guru. And so I was reading a passage earlier today, and it said, think about how, and I know this is true for me from my experience, when I'm just meditating, and I can be meditating on any topic, sometimes it just doesn't feel it's like meditation doesn't seem to be feeling as effective. When that happens for me, I go to a meditation on gratitude for my teachers. And then now I feel inspired. And there's a qualitative change. And all I can say is it's something to experience, right? And if you don't have a teacher, then think about the Buddha, think about the kindness, think about more generically initially, all of these beings who have preserved the teachings and have tried to pass those down to us, and feeling that gratitude and allowing yourself to feel that opens you up to have a greater level of realization and more powerful experiences. But you have to be careful, because it shouldn't just be like an emotional thing. It shouldn't be a personality thing or a charisma thing. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is understanding the teachings, practicing them, and then that gratitude does inject an element of emotion that does open you up for more realization. But again, you don't want to be dependent on emotion, right? Emotions change. Yeah.
It seems to me that you can take this information and use it straight across the board with all of your relations in your life, relationships in your life.
Absolutely. And as you practice guru devotion, like ideally, if you practice perfectly, you would begin to see your guru in every single person that you were with. You would see them, not just every person, every being, in everything. Because you'd be taking, so the guru, one of the quotes that Lama Zopa has in this book, and it's important, like, what is the guru? So there's the nominal, we talked about, like, there's nominal Buddha, and and then there's like the ultimate Buddha being Dharmakaya, the enlightened mind, the emptiness of the enlightened mind. This is what the guru is. So there's a guru, but the real guru, the absolute guru, is actually that emptiness, that wisdom that understands that, and then is interacting with that being based on that understanding. So you're right on. It can be every relationship. And then, when you practice like that, you don't have to necessarily be with your teacher all the time, but I think it's important to try to spend some time and be in the presence of your teacher for a lot of reasons. But students who are close to their teachers have these problems where then they see their teachers looking ordinary, like they're human beings, they're living, breathing, and again, we attribute things. We're looking from the outside. We can attribute, like, oh, he's, Lama Zopa, for me, and I shouldn't say it as if it's just universal and objective, because it's the guru. It's not objectively existing. But he appears to me as like being so easy to trust. He doesn't do anything that even looks ordinary to me. Like, he eats a meal. If you ever have a meal with Lama Zopa, you don't even get the sense that he's not eating it to just enjoy. You just don't get that sense that he's enjoying that meal. Well, he is, but you get the sense it's out of necessity to keep himself going. It's done with gratitude for all the beings who contributed to that meal. And it is done with the motivation that he will, be healthy and be able to help other beings. And he even says these things as he's doing it, and it's quick. It's not, which is not to say somebody couldn't savor a guru could also savor the meal, right? But for me, it's very easy to look and say, I can't imagine what could motivate a person to be who he is, who he appears to be in the world to me, out of anything other than just an amazing wisdom and compassion. Like, you couldn't put that on as an act. It's so constant and just wonderful. So I feel lucky, but I'm guessing that there's people who might be have a different view, right? Of course, because we're in samsara, people have a different view. And it's okay, So it's important not to also, so if you have a Dharma friend and you know that they have this relationship with a teacher, that they have this guru-disciple relationship, but that teacher doesn't look good to you, actually, you should kind of keep your mouth shut unless you really can very skillfully kind of help to guide them. Because again, if they are skilled and if they understand the teachings, they can use whatever's manifesting as a teaching itself. But what you don't want is someone to just lose faith and malign the guru, because then the guru becomes, the power the guru has comes from that relationship you have with them. And the minute that they just smash that and say, what a waste, that guy's a joker or whatever. I mean, hopefully it wouldn't be that, but I'm sure these things happen, right? Then that person loses, then you no longer have an object that can function that way for you. So they're like a mirror, and cultivating the pure view of the Lama is really part of the practice of transforming your world entirely. So, I mean, you said it, looking at other beings and other relationships and extracting the teachings from that. And then you could say, what are they really? Because reality is, conventional reality is what is functioning. So if I am able to use my relationship with a being in a certain way to truly advance on the path, to gain realization and understanding of wisdom, emptiness, to open my heart and be more compassionate. And if I can use my relationship with that person for that to happen, then what is that person truly? To the extent that we can say truly, they're anything. I've actually transformed them. So it's like you take the easiest object, which is you look in the world, who looks to be like the best example. And, and also, like I said, if you don't have a teacher right away, that's not a bad thing, probably a good thing. Check people out. In the interim, use Buddha, Lord Buddha, use Jesus, use the Dalai Lama is good for a lot of people, right? And he's good, he's safe. And I don't mean this in a heretical way, but he's also safe because he's far away. You're probably not going to stumble upon things that your crazy mind is going to find fault with, right? Like we do with everybody we meet. But you use them and you perfect them with your view, with your understanding, and by increasing your own qualities. And now it's like you perfected one being. And then you use what you did with the guru on everyone else. Literally. And this is, if our world is going to become like an enlightened paradise, this is how it's going to happen, right? Because for an enlightened being right here, right now, this world is very different. It's not this world. It's not samsara. They've transformed it. And the guru is the root and the guru is the beginning. It's the starting point. Okay, so now I'm going to shut up again.
I have a question, Mom. I have a question.
Yeah.
So, my own. I didn't know if I was on mute still or not. So as a little baby Buddha, I'm wondering, how do you go about like I've done a lot of reading, and then I just started coming here for this Sangha. So where are your next steps in finding a teacher and going and learning and, on your journey?
You're doing it. I mean, I think so. Being here, as you said, reading all of that is a first step. But it's like anything. Right. So the beginning of this class is like set our intention. What's our intention? Because if we never have the intention, we don't have the recognized desire for something to happen, then we'll never create the causes, right? So I think one is understanding. So if you're in this tradition or, you know, certainly any Tibetan Buddhist tradition, you'll hear about the teacher. And actually you'll hear from, you know, other traditions sometimes that have even criticized Tibetan Buddhism a little bit. You know, there's, you know, saying that it's Lamaism, right? Some kind of worship. I would say that comes from not really understanding what the guru is. So you're here. And then when you hear these teachings, like, if it sounds like, okay, I could see where that kind of relationship could help my mind. So then even just wanting it, right? And then looking at thinking of the Buddha, you know, there's practice guru yoga you can do without even having a direct guru, right? So it could be historically someone that looks to you like, well, like the Buddha, like an enlightened being, that you say, this is an enlightened being. I have refuge in them. And then, you know, praying to meet teachers that you trust. And then being comfortable to take teachings without going there in your mind, like, oh, this is a guru, you know, there's a nice Dharma friendship. I'm taking these teachings, I'm checking these people out. And then, you know, I pray to meet someone that touches your heart and mind in a way that's really going to help you transform it.
Mhm.
But wanting it is the first thing. And then it's interesting because the causes are doing the practice. So the causes for something are, you know, it might look like the cause is to get on a plane. And, you know, we do those things too. You get on a plane and you go and you try to see His Holiness, or you try to see Lama Zopa, or you go to the local Dharma center. So we do all those things. But, you know, the causes for having a guru are, you know, having that respect for the Dharma and, you know, having that intention of wanting to move forward on the path, having the awareness of your own mind, like, I need help, right? Because anything that we do, you know, this is this idea of like the pot being, you know, closed or upside down, like feeling like I can do these things on my own. You know, if we're looking at it, like even reading books, we're not doing it on our own. There's nothing that we're doing on our own, right? It's all from the kindness of countless living beings, everything that we do. And so just opening up and understanding that, then it becomes so obvious, like, of course, if and again, I say, don't bite off anything. Test the teachings, think about it, consider it, see how they work in your life. If there's a concept that you don't get, just try not to be too disrespectful about it. Put it on the back burner, say, I'll come back to that, but focus on what works for you. But having said that, as you're doing the practices and they are working for you, then looking around and, you know, where are these teachings coming from?
Where are the teachers coming from?
And they're coming from you trying to practice, right?
Mhm.
And not from, they're not, because they're not external.
Mhm.
Ultimately, it is ultimately the absolute guru is the Dharmakaya. It's the enlightened mind. And it's right there. Yeah, Michael.
I think we're at a time though of transition, because I'm going to say you're of a generation, not because you're older, because I'm older than you, probably significantly older than you, but you came into Dharma by going to find it,
Mhm.
by going to there, right? People like me come into Dharma by tuning into the internet, right? And then what happens is I'm involved in a center. I live down the street from you. I'm involved in a center that's in a different state. Rinpoche isn't there very often, and even Geshe is only there for pretty much half the year.
True.
And then what I found is, when I've asked the people who I've found that seem to be available in terms of time, they tell me that they're not qualified to teach.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're qualified to teach.
And then the people who are qualified to teach, they're not really around. And you know what? I find it would be arrogant. So if, for example, I had an audience with the Dalai Lama, for me to say, hey, would you be my teacher? That seems arrogant of me because
No, it's humble.
no, I mean, it is though, right? Because I think there are plenty of people besides the Dalai Lama who have a lot to teach me because I don't know anything. I don't know anything, so I can learn from somebody who's down the pecking order, right? And you know, and the problem that I have is I come from a tradition where it's where when you teach, you watch one, you do one, and then you teach one. So you don't stay in the tradition. And so on the one hand, I appreciate the fact that people have said, you know what, I just don't feel like I have enough knowledge to do that. And on the other hand, I think, look, you got more knowledge than I do.
You hit the nail right on the head. But you know, there's a difference between a teacher and a Dharma friend and a guru, right? Like a teacher with a capital T, like you'll hear the expression heart teacher or, you know, root guru. Those are the terms, right? But it's interesting. So, you know, you don't have, so when you understand the guru, when you understand what they are, which is not some guy. I mean, I cannot, or some woman, I cannot stress that enough. The guru, the real guru, is not some guy.
Right.
The real guru is the enlightened mind.
Right.
And so, and it comes to you in myriad ways, right? So if I'm believing more in someone that is in the room with me than I am with someone that's affecting my mind, maybe that I've never met, like that's also a mistake, right? So yes, I encourage, you know, go when you have that feeling of devotion that starts to stir, go. If you can, go. Try to be in their presence. Because why? Because it helps you. You know, it's a very practical. It's sort of like, I love Dharma because it is so practical, right? Why do you want to be with them? Because they're going to inspire you. They're going to make you want to practice more. You know, that's why you do it. It's not like you're bad or wrong if you don't. And it's not like you're a better person if you've gone to more teachings. It's not like that. It's just, you know, maybe some people don't need to see their guru all the time. But according to this tradition, and I believe, you know, you need one. You need a teacher, but you don't need them right now. And the other thing is, you can have an understanding that they are with you. And ultimately, it's that enlightened mind. And if you've heard, I'm sure, well, I'm not sure. I don't know how much people know, but there's something called the result refuge. So the result refuge is going for refuge to your future enlightened self, which must occur. And so in some way, not in some way, your guru is also inseparable with that. So, you know, understanding that it is the enlightened mind, understanding the value of having like a human being, like in your lifetime to relate to in that way, understanding the value, you don't have to rush into it. And I think, you know, people are so humble, but you know, yeah, I can't teach you. Okay, I understand you're not a guru. You know, I'm not a guru, but we have to be willing. And even you, Michael, you know, you say, all right, somebody knows more than you, but you know more than somebody else. So it is certainly when you're talking about Dharma to understand that it's really important. And so to be careful, you know, to be careful with like, okay, here's what my teachers have said. Here's what my experience is. Not making up things, you know, just out of your own head, but sharing what your experience is for sure. Sharing even, you know, this is my understanding and here's some resources, or here's how I understand it. And we can do that for each other. And then it's like, it's a discussion. Maybe sometimes instead of saying, will you teach me? It's like, look, can we talk about this? Can we talk about this topic?
But for me, the problem comes in that if I had done this, if I had dropped everything to go do this when I was in my early 20s, I could have done it. Right? The next time I'm going to have a chance to do this is when I'm in my early 80s. Right? Because I've got a career and I love what I do. It's not that it's more important to me than enlightenment. I love what I do, and I don't want to stop doing it. And for now, guess what? I can get all the teaching I want off the internet. And I'm okay with that, except that I keep hearing, but you got to have a teacher. You got to have a teacher. You got to have a teacher. I keep hearing that, and it kind of, well, then
I get it.
tell me who it's going to be, because
I
it
get
ain't
it.
going to be Rinpoche, and it ain't going to be Geshe-la, I don't know, and it ain't going to be Rabina. And I asked, other people, and they say it can't be them, and so it's like, well, I can only
Well,
ask
nobody,
people.
well, what I'll tell you is one thing, nobody can tell you who your teacher should be. Even you want them to agree to make that connection with you. But honestly, nobody else can tell you, because they don't know, because it's your personal.
But I think it's a bit disingenuous for me to say, "Oh, Lama Zopa Rinpoche is my root guru," when I've never met the person,
Totally,
never
totally,
talked to him,
totally.
right? So
You're so right on. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche might be. So when I first met him, I have to tell you, I met another teacher first, who really captured my heart, and that's why I'm a Buddhist. But before I met Lama Zopa, I sort of thought, well, what is this guy, like Elvis? Because everyone was sort of like, it almost like the cult of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, right? And then I met him, and honestly, and oh my gosh, I would love to talk more about this next time, because it's a full topic, but I'm also happy to not. But when I realized Rinpoche was my teacher, was actually not a moment of like warm, fuzzy love. It was actually a moment where my ego just came full on, because someone said something that challenged me. I mean, I really thought, I'm so-and-so, I'm Bonnie, and I'm educated, and I'm this, and I'm that, and who are they to tell me this? And the thought, my ego came rushing up. And then I actually looked over, and there was this picture of him. And I thought, oh my God, that is my teacher. And I can never, no worries. And I can never, thank you for joining us. I can never turn back. He's affected my mind. I'm having this big rush of ego. And then I just was like, oh, this is what it is. He's teaching me something, and it doesn't feel good. And he's the guy, it wasn't a good feeling. And it wasn't that I had spent a ton of time with him either, actually. So what I would say, Michael, is I believe that you do need a teacher. You don't have to believe that right out of the gate. That could be one that you put on the back burner, and that's okay, right? We already said, if something doesn't resonate or you can't get your head around it, you put it on the back burner. There's value in aspiring to getting one, and you don't know how they're going to show up. And, just being open to that, and not feeling, because we've already said the absolute guru is the enlightened mind. So that enlightened mind is out there, and you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to, right? It's there. And you wanting to connect with that and make contact with that and get inspired by that wish and that aspiration is what is going to get you an actual teacher that you feel genuine. And then next week, if you want, I'll talk about like why it's not arrogant to say, would you be my teacher? But it realistically, and he might be your root teacher, but he might just be like the one that you're using. And I guess that is the root teacher. So, wow, I talked a lot, and I hope it was helpful or interesting. And because I opened up the can of worms, really, really next week, come with questions, come with arguments, like why, if it doesn't make sense, or like, oh, why you think it's dangerous, or why you have resistance, or, oh my God, I made a connection with someone and now I regret it. What do I do? All of those things. This is a great forum to be able to talk about really important stuff, and be your own therapist, and understand having a guru is being your own therapist. And we have 3 minutes. Wow, this went really quickly. I hope it was okay, the topic. It's so hard to know in this kind of forum, but I can tell you, I think it's important, and I hope that everyone here meets someone that touches their minds and hearts and inspires them to push themselves and go further and grow, and that they can understand emptiness enough that they aren't going to be relying on some guy, right? They're using their own wisdom, and in that relationship that they can hold that pure view. So, with that, I want to just take a minute, and I'll make it a 30-second minute to just dedicate, the time we've spent and the time you've, been listening or even rolling your eyes or, whatever, just the energy of kind of sticking with it, to dedicate that towards really achieving all of your spiritual goals. And then if you're Mahayana, that means helping others, achieving all of their goals as well. And then may this become the cause for that. And may all of those people who help us on the path, which, as we become more wise, that becomes pretty much everybody. May they all have long and healthy lives and continue to affect our minds in positive ways. And may all wishes for happiness and well-being, may everyone have that. And thank you so much for your time. And please, please, let's discuss next week. Right. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Loaded topic.
Thanks, Bob.